Hello and welcome to the Feminine Millionaire Show. I'm your host, Polly Alexander. I'm a success coach, intuitive healer, and a passionate creative. And I believe that we all have the power to manifest magic and miracles into our life. If creating success in a spiritual, feminine, and joyful way is your goal, this show is for you. You'll understand how to overcome your past, bring your soul's greatest gifts to the world, and up-level your income, impact, joy, and happiness. Let's all rise together. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Feminine Millionaire Show. Today I have a very special guest. Not only is she also a client of mine, but she is a multi-talented creative entrepreneur. Polly Singer is an internationally renowned milliner, tea entrepreneur, etiquette trainer, and motivational speaker. She's a graduate of the prestigious Fashion Institute of Technology and was named America's Best Couture Designer, with her unique and classic hat designs appearing all over the world. Polly's hats and teas have also been featured in publications like the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, People, Town and Country, and Forbes. And in 2021, Polly expanded her brand to include a collection of loose leaf artisan tea blends. She then went on to train in the art of afternoon tea etiquette and is a member of the International Etiquette Trainers Society. As a popular guest speaker, Polly hosts etiquette classes, afternoon teas, and hat trunk shows, which are often combined with afternoon tea events. And yet another reinvention, Polly's speaking presentations have continued to grow as she consistently hosts and speaks to sold-out events and large audiences. And the reason she's here today is so that we can have a conversation about reinvention at any age, because Polly actually introduced her tea line and became an etiquette coach with sell-out events at aged 59 and had her first magazine cover at age 60. Welcome, Polly.
Oh, thank you, Polly. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for such a wonderful introduction. I was like, is that me?
Let's share with our audience what your careers looked like. Like, where did you start?
Okay. Well, when I moved to New York, I worked in the music business, which I loved and which sounds very glamorous, but I was an admin. I was an administrative assistant. So I was basically a glorified gopher. Somebody that would do errands and answer the phone. And I so missed working with my hands. And I was pretty burned out. And a really good friend of mine, Suzanne, said, well, why don't we take these classes at FIT? And I thought, okay, I'm not doing anything else right now. So I did. And it just opened the door and it made me realize just how much I loved creating and how much I loved working with color and playing with shape and form. And ironically enough, I found my grades from FIT a few days ago in decluttering. I was a B minus C plus student. I wasn't a straight A student, which is kind of funny. But I think, for my career, I just kept plugging on. My mom always said perseverance pays. So I always just kept plugging on when, hats were out of fashion. No one was wearing hats and just kept doing it. So I think that's really the secret of any success, just to keep on.
You started out in the music business, so that was in your 20s. When did you pivot to hats? When did you actually start your hat business?
I was 30. I was right at 30 years old. Yeah, I was right at 30. And what was interesting, I broke my ankle. So I was stuck at home. So I was making hats, I guess, or about mid 93. And I wore just something silly. I thought it was silly, but just something I glued some flowers on. I think dried flowers, maybe dried roses. And I wore that into the office. And Charles was like, oh, that's a really nice hat, Polly. And I was like, wow, this is a man who wears $10,000 suits, who's a multimillionaire. So to get that compliment from him was pretty nice. And it just was like, okay, there could be something to this. And, I was just kind of burnt out, being an admin and, just working super long hours and not really getting anywhere, and just kind of realizing I wanted something else.
Were you creative as a child?
Yeah, I was. I was. We have this thing called the fairs, the county fairs, where you make things and you get ribbons. And I always was encouraged to make things. And my mother and I would do classes together. And, I grew up painting. I grew up sewing in 4-H. I grew up, making little tote bags to tennis dresses to sundresses. I grew up cooking and baking. My grandmother taught me how to sew. I was creative as a child. And I think it was interesting. I had a friend who kind of honed in on that. And that was kind of my wake up call. He said, well, it must be really hard for you being a creative person to have to help other people being creative, but you're not allowed to be. And I was like, wow, that was pretty profound. And that I realized was my sense of frustration as I was working in the music business with very high level people like you two. I was working when I started my hat classes, I was working on a Frank Sinatra duets project. I mean, I was working with very high end people. Barbara Streisand's office called all the time, things like that. So I was right at the top. I couldn't go anywhere else. So it's like, I start making these hats. Have a creative outlet.
So, one of the things I think that's really interesting, which you just touched on, is that I find the universe can send us signs to tell us we're on the right path. So, your boss commenting on your hat, I feel like the universe sends us these signs to direct us on certain paths and let us know that we're going in the right direction. Have you experienced that again since then?
Well, actually, I guess that same summer, it was really weird. I was getting ready for work one day and I was doing my hair, in one of those long brushes, and it got stuck in my hair. And I mean, my hairbrush got stuck in my hair. So I called my boss. He was out of town. And I was like, I can't come in today. I have a hairbrush sticking out of my hair. And he was like, well, you have to go in. There's nobody else to work in the office. So I put this big velvet hat, this big crazy velvet rock and roll kind of hat over my hairbrush and went in. And it was July, and the hat was purple with stars. I mean, it was a crazy outfit, but in New York City, in music business, you can wear whatever. That's kind of the gift of it. You can be as crazy as you want. So I walked in with that. People were like, oh, cool hat, cool hat. And I was like, wow. So it hit me that hats are so sculptural. And one of the reasons why I like them, they're fun to make, but they're also like wearable sculpture. And that from all angles, you get to see the design. Of course, I'm always very protective of my hair, and they had to actually cut it out. They had to cut out the hairbrush. It's pretty traumatic, but it served a purpose to push me in that direction.
It led you on this path. And
Mhm.
you went on to run a successful hat business. Let's fast forward 25 years later.
Well, at this point, 2019, I kind of hit a wall, and I had hats on my page. So what I would do, people could order a hat and I would, replicate one of my own. So I was just getting burned out on the style I was making. And I have this one hat. It's very Audrey Hepburn. It's big. It's a big bell brim. But I was just sitting there like, if I have to make this hat again, I'm going to scream. And of course, sometimes people want, what's successful and what they love. But I was just very burned out. And I was pretty much working alone. I had my website, but I felt it was kind of dead. And I just really felt up against a wall and I didn't know what to do. And I think, so often people feel that. And that's why reinvention comes in, because you can always reinvent where you are, no matter how burned out you are or how low you are. And then that, I guess in 2019 was when I did my travel business, my Ascot 2020. And I reinvented from there. And that's when I came to Money Beautifully Live in London.
So, for people listening, tell them what this travel business was.
Oh, okay. Well, it was a travel business I started called Elite British Tours. And it was a week-long tour to Royal Ascot, Ladies' Day, to all the top places to go, like Buckingham Palace, Kensington. It was a very bespoke tour. And actually, it was full. I did it only like 12 to 15 people. We were staying in a beautiful manor house hotel outside of London. So it's very much creating that, Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen with a touch of the modern. And it sold out. And I had a private tea scheduled for Highclere Castle, which of course is where Downton Abbey is filmed. So it was just really a magical experience. And, what happened in 2020, it didn't go. But I felt very good. I joined Thrive in, I guess, January, February of 2021. And right after that, the next month, a lady contacted me about taking afternoon tea etiquette classes and becoming an afternoon etiquette tea trainer. But I thought, well, why not? That would be really cool. And that would be a nice service to offer. And tea and hats and etiquette go together, quite well, actually. So I said, okay. And it was kind of a crazy time. My mom had leukemia and she'd been sick for 3 months. And it was a fatal diagnosis. So I was balancing caregivers for her. So I was constantly juggling. And the week of the etiquette training, it was kind of interesting that we had an ice storm and my car was iced in. Like it could not be moved. So I had to stay home and do the afternoon tea etiquette class with Nancy online. And it was just wonderful. And it was something that I think just makes people feel good. And it has that very bespoke kind of English quality to it as well. So did that. And then right after that, I did a post on social media and I was asked to be a speaker for a local chef who has a restaurant and to do a hat tea etiquette. And I did that and it sold out. It was a wonderful success, sold more hats than I thought I would. And people just loved it. I mean, everyone just had such a blast.
So, what I'm hearing from you is that there was quite a lot of serendipity in your path. What was going on for you? How were you choosing what to do and what to follow? Like, what was your internal process?
Well, kind of for me, my internal process was being open and letting go of what I felt I needed to do and just kind of putting myself out there and, like, okay, I'm going to do this. We'll see what happens. I just had a faith in a way that it would work out, but I also just let go and stopped trying to be where I thought I should be and do what I thought I should do.
So you were open, you had faith, and then you let go and surrendered.
Yeah, I did. I did. And, it was so funny because I mean, it was just little things that I did, like on a post, I made the one that the chef liked, I did a heart shaped hat. And I did it, it was during the winter. And she said, oh, that heart shaped hat just so caught my eye. And then, we connected through that. So I think a lot of it is color and love and energy and putting that out on your social media and your emails too. I think a lot of times, you just kind of throw it all out there and you never know what'll come back, but just trusting what comes back is the right thing and knowing that it's the right thing at the right time.
What's made your business more fun?
Well, I would definitely say the teas and the tea line. And I love tea. I've always loved tea. I grew up with it. So I think, having different aspects and different income streams has been nice because it's like I have the speaking, I have the events, I have the hats. So I don't feel so dependent on the hats because before I just had the hats. And if, there's a slow month, and there's always going to be slow months and ups and downs, but I would kind of freak out. Whereas having other streams, it's made it fun. And then I can also do the events, which kind of bring the hats and teas together and the etiquette. And people, wear their hats to the events. So that's been fun. And actually, I've had just even the past week, more people contact me about the hat teas and the etiquette events. So that's kind of shows me I'm on a good path with that.
hmm And what do you get from these different ventures, from diversifying?
Well, I think it gives me more energy. I feel more energetic. I like the sense of freedom. I think there is a bit of freedom in doing, and I love to travel. So if it's someplace where I can travel and meet new people, I'm there. So I do enjoy that. But, everybody that I have met in, the hat and the tea business is just really nice. And it's a different world, and that's one of the things I've liked about hats versus regular fashion. It's a different world and it's really been nice. I mean, I've really enjoyed that.
So, do you think creative people need to reinvent, or do you think everyone does? We're here to talk about reinvention.
Well, I think everyone does, but especially creative people. And when you're creative, you have so many different I don't know, ideas and all that, but you can feel very blocked and dead. And I think, especially if you're creative, but I really think for all people, and it's interesting, I'll sit around and I have a lot of people my age that are retired and, they're happy doing that, but they kind of want something else. They're not ready just to step back. But I think they were so happy to retire because they were in jobs that that drained them. They hated that they did a job for 30 years that they didn't like. So, and had to get up and be somewhere, at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. to someplace that they didn't really like. So I feel lucky to do what I do. But I think really you can reinvent yourself at any age. And I think that's what keeps people alive and it keeps people fresh and engaged. And I think you always need something new, or I do. I got my first pair of hiking boots when I was 60. I'd never owned hiking boots. I just always used my trainers and got some really cool hiking boots. And then last week did 23 miles in Utah in Canyonlands and Arches National Park. And, it was interesting because I had people say, well, why don't you just go lay on the beach? And I'm like, well, I want to achieve something. I want to get my 23 miles in. I want to climb those boulders and hike through canyons. I think it really makes people feel alive. So I do feel alive and inspired, and I get a lot of energy. And when I'm blocked or burned out, I mean, just everything takes energy. You're like, oh, I've got to go across the room and pick up that hat. Whereas if you have lots of energy, like, wee, so that really helps, I think, is it just affects your energy. And then outlook, you draw when you're excited, like I was with the etiquette classes, I drew somebody to me because I was feeling so much more positive. If you're burned out, people aren't as attracted to you. And it's just, I don't know if it's the law of attraction or what it is, but I think people want to feel good and they're attracted to people that make them feel good, that make them lift them up, inspire them at some level.
So, we've talked a bit about some of the mindsets that you adopt and the attitude that you adopt to be able to try new things, to be able to reinvent, to be able to diversify your business. I'm curious, what did you have to let go of?
Well, I think the idea that I had to do it all on my own, because I've had that idea for a very long time, that I should be able to do it all on my own as the only daughter, oldest daughter, first granddaughter, that I had to do it all on my own and that it was okay to accept help. And, it can be exhausting when you try to do it on your own and frustrating and lonely. So letting go of that and also being open to change. I have always, my husband always laugh about this, but I have a very hard time with change and being open to change and knowing that change can be good, because a lot of change is foisted on us, through technology or this or that. So being open to change and also, a lot of the mindset work we did really, really helped. A lot of the clearings, a lot of the patterns, really self-worth was a big thing for me, really working on that and the gratitude list and all that, and, what you're proud of, little things like that that are almost like daily exercises, but they strengthen you. And then also the forgive at the end of the day, too. Who do you forgive or let go? And that really helps too, because having that unforgiveness, I had a issue years ago, probably about 2015. I had another designer who copied me, and she copied me on a very big level, very mass market level. And I did a lot. I mean, I was angry for a long, long, long time. I did a lot of forgiveness work. And then I went to an event and I saw her where both of us were selling our hats. And I was nice to her. And then she immediately went over and started copying my designs again. I'm like, well, whatever, knock yourself out. But what was interesting is my designs ended up selling better at that event than hers did. And I wasn't even mad at her anymore. I was like, well, stuff like that's just going to happen. You have to let that go, because if you obsess about things, it only hurts you.
So, strengthening your self worth, letting go of things, letting things wash over you, doing the forgiveness work, and small daily practices. And let's just explain to anybody listening, you mentioned about the clearing work. To give you a bit of background, Polly was in my Thrive Beautifully Mastermind for 3 years. And we do a lot of deep healing and deep clearing of ancestral patterns, of childhood patterns, limiting beliefs that we have accumulated over our lifetime. How did Thrive support you in this reinvention?
Well, so many ways. First of all, having a small group of like minded people. that are really working on themselves, their businesses too, that are just motivated. I would say that highly motivated. And the weekly calls really help because, the check in, because it's very easy to get isolated, especially as an artist, because I do most of my designing alone. So I really, really enjoy that, and the calls and the clearings. And a lot of the stuff about ancestral patterns are things that, you don't even realize are there. I mean, you kind of do when you think back on it. Like, I had an interesting thing. I hated shipping hats. I hated, 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 hated shipping. And that's crazy because I'm in the business of shipping hats. So I ended up finding out that my grandfather was in the military and one of his jobs was to ship weapons. So, of course, which aren't fun to ship and cause a lot of pain and hurt. So, kind of when things came up like that, realizing, okay, yeah. And also, I think, a lot of us have the feeling that our lives are so much, in a way, easier than our ancestors, and feeling guilty about that. I've just even a few generations ago, and I had a great aunt who wanted to be a milliner. My great aunt Ruby, and her father, my great grandfather, told her that ladies like you don't do that. That's kind of seen as below you. That's what somebody else would do, but you can't do that. So just the freedom of being able to do what we want to do, but also knowing that it's okay. Because I do think it's easy to feel guilty about what you have, or at least I have sometimes.
As you know, I'm a huge believer in the impact of ancestral patterns and what gets passed down that we're unaware of, that's impacting us, that's playing out in how we think and how we feel and how we behave and what we think's possible. And so much of it was never ours to begin with. So thank you for sharing that story about your great auntie Ruby. I like to think that she's looking down now, clapping in glee. One thing which I've observed, having worked with you a lot over the last few years, is your ability to follow your intuition. And I know that you are moving into your own office right now. You're probably in your own studio, which is the next chapter again in your evolution. And I'd love you to share a bit about how you think your intuition has helped you in business.
It's really interesting. I think it's opened a lot of doors. It helps me in designing because I'll pick certain colors or certain styles. I'll go with, especially when I'm working with a client one on one. When I meet with them, they bring their outfit, I design around them. It's really helped make the process quicker. And now when I meet with them, it's like 15 minutes. Whereas when I first started, it would be sometimes an hour. I'm like, okay, this, and this. And they're like, okay, great. Thanks. They really appreciate that. But also what steps to take and what's going to work, and just really following that. And I had even when I started my tea line, I thought, this would really go well with the hats and the etiquette. And I just feel it would be an interesting concept of, somebody that designs hats and pulls in the hats, pulls in the etiquette, and pulls in the tea. And then also when you follow my intuition, it's weird. Like sometimes I'll have funny things that just pop in my head. And then it's like, okay, that's what that was about.
So, what I'm hearing is that you sense something before it comes into reality.
Yeah, yeah, I do. And I've had that a lot. And I've gotten, I guess, more confident with it, and more accepting of it, and maybe less scared of it, because sometimes things like that, you go, where's this coming from? But now I really enjoy it. And, I'll have that thing of, you're thinking about somebody and then literally you get a text from them, that kind of deal. Or actually interesting, there's a state that I want to visit in America, and we were talking about it, like, oh, I'd really like to go to this state. And then a couple of days ago, I had an invitation to speak in that state.
So, thank you so much for sharing about your journey. I think it's so inspiring hearing how you've reinvented yourself again and again in these different stages of life, and especially now into your sixth decade, that you actually seem to be reinventing with more agility and more confidence than ever before. Would you say that's true for you?
Yeah, it is. It is. I think I have more confidence because, I've done a lot of the work, done the inner work, and been in a supportive group and had that container and had your support, all of that really helping me. And I think it's also trusting the process and just, okay, this is going to work out. It's going to flow, not being nervous and putting out, oh, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? And that makes you feel a lot more confident and able to pivot. And then also, it's kind of like on my T line, I thought, well, I think this is going to work, but who knows? It might not. I was like, if it doesn't, that's okay. If it doesn't, that's okay. I can do something else. So trusting, but also knowing that you're always being guided to the next level. And I really feel that doors are always opening for me. And I think I'm attracting a lot better opportunities and much more positive people. And also the thing of saying no, that gives you an agility because just every offer that comes at you, you don't have to accept and having a lot stronger boundaries. And I think it's just kind of a mix of all the work.
I think this is one of the beautiful things as we get older that we develop, that we
Mhm,
let go of old insecurities if we're doing the work, that we
mhm,
grow our confidence, we grow our willingness to take risks, we grow our willingness to experiment, as you said, to put things out there and be okay if it doesn't work. And that gives us a kind of inner strength and resilience, which we can use as we move through business.
mhm. I think so. It does. It does give you that strength. And also to knowing that if it doesn't work out, it's okay. And not being so attached to the result. Because I always used to be so attached to the results. And also accepting that my not basing my business on emotions. Like if I'm having a hard day, just take the day off, not pushing myself. And that's what I think was really burning me out, was just pushing so hard and also going more with the feminine flow and realizing, okay, maybe I'll just take today off. I'm really tired. I'll just take the day off. And then I have more energy. So I found for my business too, it's about energy and motivation and liking it as opposed to just plowing through and just, beating myself up. Okay, I must do 5 hats today. I must post 5 hats today because that doesn't make it fun. And that's why, you do a creative business is for fun. So yeah, and knowing there are going to be down times and that's just it.
Yeah, a great reminder that people begin creative businesses for the joy and the fun. People express their creative gifts to enjoy the journey, to feel fulfilled. So that's a great reminder. Thank you for bringing that in. And so, what are you excited about next? What are you excited about for this coming year?
Well, I'm excited about some tea events and some teaching events, perhaps out of state. I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited about growing my business to the next level in terms of my VIP group. Doing some promotions of that. I'm also excited about the new studio space. I think that's really going to be fun. I'm moving in gradually because I just feel it's a very organic thing and I'm painting and doing fun colors and all that. But I'm really excited about that because I think that will really help me with the work home balance because being someone that likes what I do and working, I can be in my room making hats sometimes until 11 or 12 o'clock. I need that balance to separate. But the new space feels really good and I've been furnishing it slowly and I'm really excited to have a dedicated house of hats, as it were. And I can do classes there as well. So I'm really excited about that. Small etiquette classes, very bespoke things, tea tastings, and have my own space.
Great. Great. So, where's the best place for people to connect with you?
Okay. Through my website, pollysinger.com, and Instagram, Polly Singer Hats and Teas, and Facebook as well.
Great. We'll link to all of those in the show notes. There's one question I like to ask everybody that comes on the show, and that is, what is true abundance for you?
Well, I would say true abundance is just not having to worry and just knowing that my schedule is my own and the freedom is my own. And that's my biggest joy in business that I'm appreciative of is just the freedom and the freedom to work when I want to work and also self expression. That to me is really abundance. And the people that come into my life, that I meet through the events, the teas, the hats, clothes, that is very enriching. So I feel it's very abundant. I mean, sometimes on paper, it can be up and down, but it's very abundant. But also having, different flows of income now have been really nice, different avenues. That's really abundance and taking away the worry.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show, for being such a great guest. Congratulations on your continual reinvention and your ability to continually create. I think it's very, very inspiring. And I look forward to seeing what you birth next.
Oh, thank you. Lots in the works here. So we'll see.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Now, Polly has the most gorgeous hats and wonderful teas available on her website, and she has very kindly offered our listeners 20% off on any teas and hats on her website. Just use the code Polly Alexander in caps at checkout. You can also find this in the show notes. So big thank you to Polly for her generous gift for you all. So I am switching to bi-weekly for these interviews for a while. So the next interview will be here in 2 weeks' time. But I can now be found on TikTok. I am embracing new things, walking my talk, and finding my feet on a whole new platform. So you can follow me over there at polly.alexander. Come over there, drop me a message, say hello, and watch as I begin a new journey. Have a wildly abundant week. Bye for now.